Hey everybody! Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these butterfly wing style wire wrapped elf ears. I've got a couple of different examples here so that you can see how different metal tone and bead color can really give you a different effect. Now, materials that you'll need for today's project are two 14-inch lengths of 18 gauge square wire. You can also use round, but in today's tutorial we'll be using square. I like the nice faceted, flashy, shiny effect that it has. And then two 8-inch lengths of the 18 gauge square wire. Now this one I have here to demonstrate this step later on, but it'll start out nice and straight like the other ones. You'll also need 26 gauge wire, about an arm span, so like maybe like a yard and a half. Sorry, I use my body to measure more than anything, so I've been having to reference over to a yardstick and ruler. I highly recommend Parawire. That's where I get my square wire from. They very high quality products that are tarnish resistant. Some size 8 glass seed beads. You can use a smaller size, but I really like the effect that these give. Today I'm using transparent rainbow multicolor. And I like the Dynamite brand of beads. They're a little inconsistent in size sometimes, so it's not the best for like bead weaving, but it's perfect for doing accent pieces. And then here we have two 10mm faceted bicone crystal beads, two 8mm, and you can have these in whatever color you like, four 6mm faceted bicones, two 4mm faceted bicones, and you'll notice in the 6mm I have two different colors, but you don't have to do that. And then I have 6 4mm round metal beads. Here they're copper toned, but again, use whatever color scheme that you like. Put those right back so they don't get away from me. Okay, so now we're going to start off by making this spiral section. So you'll do that by taking your 8-inch length of wire and measure in 4.5 inches from the end. And where it's 4.5 inches, I'm just going to grip it with my pliers. Oh, also, bent nose, round nose, wire snips. That's all I'm using. So I'm going to grip it like this, and then bend it to an acute angle. It's about 45 degrees. Isn't it cute? Sorry. And now from here, you'll see I've got the wire like this. This end is longer than this one, but I'm going to take it and pressing against it with my middle finger, I'm just going to rub my thumbnail along the inner edge of it, and that's going to give it a nice little curve, and I'm going to do that same thing to the bottom. And you'll do this to both of your 8-inch pieces. So now that I've got that done here, we're going to make little spirals. I'm going to grip the wire as close to the tip as I can, and I'm trying to keep my facets of the square wire pretty lined up. You can put intentional or unintentional twists in it. So you see there. Then bracing it against my thumb, I'm going to rotate my hand around, holding onto the wire to make a nice little loop. I'm going to close that up the rest of the way. And then, bracing it against my finger, I'm going to grip and spiral inward. Like that. And I'm going to do that same thing to the bottom one. Just grip on the tip there. Now this one, I mean, that's really exaggeratedly long, so I'm just going to twist in with my hand a little bit more. Got a little bit of a jagged end, so I'm going to flatten that down with my pliers. And so you can see how that's starting to take shape. And so now I'm going to do the other one to try to match this one as closely as possible. I try to make both of the ears at the same time, kind of step by step on each side. That way it's easier to measure against this one if it's not already woven into the ear, if it's still just sitting loose like this. I can really overlayer it and make sure that they line up. And again, this is just the way that I do it. Feel free to deviate and experiment and kind of find what works for you the best, because it's an art, not a science. It's not about how you get there, it's about the end result. So here we have our two pieces. Pretty well lined up. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be as perfect as you'd like it to be. And then also, the ears are mirrors of each other. So you'll want one of them flipped that away. So now that we have the spiral pieces shaped, let's shape the frame of the ear. And you can do this separately. I do the wires both at the same time. And I measure almost a full palm length. I just bring it up to kind of the middle of that knuckle joint. So let's measure that and see. It's about 5 inches. And so now I'm going to grip it with my pliers. And then pushing on the short side, I'm going to make about a 90-degree bend. And that's giving us the point of our ear. Okay, so maybe more like 80 degrees. But, and then again, you want them mirror imaged of each other. So you can kind of see here how that's going to fit together. And so now I'm going to pull off a length of my 26 gauge wire that I'm going to be using to weave all this together with. Sneap. And I'm going to take one of my 10mm beads and thread it on to find the center of the wire. So I just line the ends of the wire up and then pull it down to the middle. And you'll want to position your 10mm bead. You can see how it sits just very comfortably into that little angle we had made for the tip of the ear. And also you'll notice I have the wire coming in on top on both sides. Oops. You can see there, it's sitting on top. And so now I'm going to just wrap 5 coils around each side. 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll notice I use my fingernail to kind of press up and against. There's one side. And you can, I'd recommend 3 or more wraps, but you want it to be nice and secure. And if it comes out kind of loose like that, I just tighten it down and push it with my fingernails. And then while I'm at this point, to keep me from kind of forgetting where I'm at on the other ear, I'm going to go ahead and do this same thing. And then for the rest of the tutorial, I'm just going to show you how to do just one ear. That way it doesn't take, you know, ages. See? So again, I'm going to thread it on there. Line my ends up as best I can. And then pull through so it's centered up. And so you'll see on this one how I have the short end on this side. On the other ear, I'm going to have the short end on the other side. Line the bead up with the point that was made, and then wrap 5 times on each side. Pulling it nice and tight, keep it pretty snug. 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now, whenever I proceed from here, it'll help me to keep the ears as mirrors of each other, as opposed to just duplicates. Like, you don't want to end up with 2 right ears. So I'm going to go ahead and set the other ear aside, because all this long wire can kind of get in the way. And so now, we're going to take one of our 4mm metal beads, thread it onto our wire, and let it slide all the way down to the base. And this short side here will end up being the side that the spirals are on. Like, this end will get spiraled in to become that spiral. So whenever I'm positioning our little spiral piece, I want the spirals to be on the side of the short side. Because this long side comes down and it's going to get like bent to be the part that secures onto the ear. So with that metal bead pushed all the way down to the end, I'm going to kind of come in and start wrapping, again 5 wraps around the spiral piece. Just like that. And now I'm going to do that same thing to the other side. Go ahead and thread our bead on. And so you can see how it lines up. And then I'm just going to bring it around and wrap 5 times. 2, 5. Again, if it's a little looser than I'd like it to be, so I'm just going to kind of smush it up with my fingernails and tighten down. Just like that. And now I'm going to break into my seed beads. And I'm just going to pick one at random. I'm not too particular on the color, since the these beads kind of have that Aurora Borealis like fire finish. The multicolor beads, by picking them randomly, it'll help it match a little better, I think. And so you can see how that bead just kind of fell into place there. And now I'm going to wrap, this time 10 times. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Smoosh that down. Just like that. And now I'm going to try to butt this spiral up against the side there. And so you can see here, it's coming in above. So I'm going to wrap, there's once and twice. Tighten that down a little bit. And then I'm going to, right now it's exiting behind the wire. I'm going to bring it up to be from above and wrap twice. And so this is giving it a very secure, nice, even weave. And so it's like I wrap 2, and then it would have been coming above, but I just bring it around to where it comes around the other wire from behind. And you want to keep it as tight and even as you can. And I'm just going to do 3 repetitions of that. Because, I don't know, I like 3s and 5s. They're nice round numbers to me, and I'm not entirely sure why, but they're very pleasing. And now I'm going to wrap for about 10 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Kind of keep that smushed down nice and tight with my fingernails. And now I'm just going to stop there on this side and continue on the other side from here. And so now we're going to be kind of repeating that same weave pattern on this side, but threading beads on with it. So I'm going to thread on a seed bead, let it fall down the wire, and you don't want it like to have too much space between the bead and the wire. Like, you want to be able to fit your weaving wire through there, but you want to keep it nice and snug. And so now I'm going to wrap 5 times. Oops. And so now you can see it's exiting on top of the wire. I'm going to go ahead and thread another bead on. Bring it over and let it kind of lay down in place. And then wrap 5 times on this side. Tighten that down with your fingernails. And doing the 5 wrappings helps the wire to exit to where the beads aren't going to be grinding up against each other too much. Because if I only did just 1 wrap, then, I don't know, the beads wouldn't quite lay flat shoulder to shoulder. So again, this one you'll see it exited on the bottom, and I'm coming around to the top side. So I let that bead fall and just rest it in place and wrap 5 times. nestle them in. Keep it nice and tight. The last thing you want is a pair of floppy elf ears. Unless that's what you're going for, in which case, flap away. I'm going to thread another bead on. You can see this one's exiting on the top. So I just bring it right around, let that fall into place. And wrap 5 times. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to add another bead. And you just repeat this down. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I have this like jerry-rigged canisters and yardsticks trying to keep the camera right up where you're getting a bird's eye view. So forgive me for crashing into it periodically. 3, 4, 5. So now we've got 5 little seed beads on there. And I think I'm going to do a couple more repetitions. Thread a bead, let it fall into place. And wrap 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 5. Gonna do one more. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to add. Now normally if I had stopped on, like, I want my last bead coming across to end with the wire on the spiral. So this one I've got to add another bead. You know, or I could trim it or go down farther this way, but for now, just the way I've been doing it, I'm going to add another bead, but this one's going to be the last bead. So you'll notice on this one here, it's this bead comes crossing over to do this part that then binds those together. So I'm going to be adding this bead, but since it's a little wide, like if I just strung the metal bead on there by itself, it's going to have some loose shoulders going on. So what I'm going to do then is I'm actually going to put a seed bead on each side of it. And there's going to be a natural variation between all of the ears, like between the different pairs that you make. Well, you know, and it looks like 2 seed beads were too many. Derp, derp, derp. So maybe I'll just do 1 seed bead. Yep, that's perfect. And now I'm going to wrap it, I think 10 times. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This reminds me of my crochet very much because it's like counting stitches almost. But yeah, so there we've got our 10 little stitches or wraps, bring us around like so. And now with the wire coming off towards the top of the ear, I'm going to add a seed bead. Let it fall into place. And now bracing it with my finger to keep it sitting on top of the wire, I'm going to do 5 wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now again, it's coming off to the wires, coming off towards the top. And this is where I'm going to add my 4mm faceted bicone. And on this one, you'll see I'm going to let it sit with its flat edge to the wire and brace it to hold it in place like that. And wrap 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tighten it down with your fingernails. And now I'm going to add which one should I do? Should I do that one or that one? Oh, here comes the train. Yeah, and don't hesitate. I think I'm going to do it that way. Don't hesitate to kind of hold beads into place and be like, do I like you better there or there? Because you never know till you try. I'm going to go ahead and thread this one on. Please pardon the train being exceptionally loud today. It's a beautiful day. And so we've got the windows open. And sometimes I swear he's just honking his horn for fun. Now again, I'm going to brace the edge up against the wire and then do 5 wraps. And I think I'm actually going to do 5 more, or at least 3. Like, just bring it up a little closer to where the curls naturally touch each other. Yeah. So I was going to make it a total of 10 wraps there. And again, you can eyeball it, not an exact science. And so you can see here, the wire's coming around behind the spiral. So I'm going to use my finger behind to kind of put a bit of a bend in the wire, and that'll let me feed it up through. And then I'm going to grab it and pull it through. And then I'm going to pull it pretty tight. Cinch it down to where those spirals are touching each other. And then I'm going to bend it through again. I have less kinking in my wire by feeding it through this way, and then do 2 wraps on the other side, than I do taking my loose end and feeding it through. Because if I do that a bunch, then I run into my wire wanting to curl up on itself. And if you're not paying as much attention as you ought to, or just if it's kinked up wire, you're gonna end up with jagged little kinks in there. Now you can put your finger in, and that keeps it nice and bowed out like that. So it's whatever you prefer. I just prefer feeding it through that way. That's what my hands got used to, so it's what I do. And I'm going to do that 2x2 weave. I'm going to repeat it 3 times. And then I'm going to finish it off by doing 10 wraps. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you could continue and wrap until you've used up all your wire, but since I'm using the fancy square wire, I want to leave it open to show off that nice shiny flash. So I'm going to use my wire snips to cut as flush up as I can. Save your scrap wire off to the side for this one because we might be using it. And then I use my bent nose pliers to make sure that's nice and smoothed down. So there's that part so far. And so now we're going to go back to what we were working on. And I'm going to thread on a seed bead, a 6mm faceted bicone, and another seed bead. Let them fall down to the base of the wire. And then you can see this one, it's wrapping around on top of the wire, so I'm going to continue that pattern and bring it around behind. I'm going to try my best to keep it nice and snug. Brace the beads with my finger to keep them in their spot. And I'm going to do 10 wraps to secure it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Smush that down with your fingernails. And it looks like I could do like maybe 5 more. Yeah. And then I'm also going to just extend this spiral out a little bit to make like a wider ear. Like if you want it to be narrower, just bring that coil in and smush that down a bit, and that's going to give you a different shape than if you bring this wire out and have it meet there. Artist's preference here. So this one, you can see a little moped came by honking his horn. It's exiting underneath the wire, so I'm actually going to bring that around and hook through the spiral. And do 2 wraps. And then come in and do 2 wraps. And if you guys are interested, let me know in the comments below. I might do a tutorial just about this specific wrapping pattern. Like, it'd be a nice short one, but it would be like very up close and repetitive and from like a lot of different angles. So now I've done the 3 repetitions. And so now I'm going to do 10 more wraps. Smush that down with my fingernails. Probably 5 more. And don't get discouraged. This comes with a lot of practice. So try out different ways of holding your hands. Having the right materials and tools can really help. That's why I always highly recommend the Parawire. So we've got 15 coils. And then bringing the wire to where it's exiting onto the inside of the ear as opposed to the outside. I'm going to thread on a seed bead. And then you don't want to wrap to where it's on top, because then the bead could very easily get knocked off to the side. So since it came around from on top, you're going to continue weaving around to the bottom, and I'm going to do 5 wraps. And also something that you want to watch out for, you don't want your wraps to cross back over themselves. Let me see if the camera will pay attention. But do you see how that crossed back over itself? You want them to stack next to each other. And so if you mess up, just backpedal a bit. You'll unwrap what you did. Add a bead. Do 5 wraps. And then I'm going to add a 3rd bead. And I'm going to end with 15 wraps. 20. smush it down with my fingernails. I'm going to snip this wire here. And again, hold on to your scrap wire because we're going to be using it. And then I'm going to use my bent nose pliers to just cinch that loose tail down. And now from here, I'm going to be measuring from the spiral. I'm just doing 3 finger lengths. And snip there. And then I'm going to grip as close to the tip of both the pliers and the wire as I can get. And start cinching it around. And then I'm just gonna, with my fingers, position it around. And so that is the ear cuff part. Now you could do this and make like some butterfly wing pendants. I mean, you could do a lot of different things with this same concept. I've seen a lot of artists, and I've done it myself as well, where I'll draw up a design on paper, then sculpt it out of wire, and then join the pieces together and kind of fill in with beads. And you can really make some beautiful things that way. Kind of labor intensive, but it's totally worth it. I mean, come on, it's worth it. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to compare my 2 lengths of scrap wire, and they're both about the same length. So normally I depict the longer one. And then farther up here on our loose end, or longer end rather, I'm going to do, this is how I start a wrap, is I'll have about 1 centimeter hanging over. I'll pin it with my finger and thumb, and then I just start wrapping. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to bind down that little bit. You can see where it's really uneven, so I just scooch it in with my fingers, then take my bent nose pliers and cinch it down. And now I'm going to take that and I'm going to just grip my core wire and then pull it up to where it's butted up right to the base of what I was working on. And now I'm going to add some seed beads. There's one. Brace the back of it so it stays in place. And I like separating them by about 5 wraps. 4, 5. Throw another one on. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Smush that down with your fingernails. Then I'm going to thread another one on. This will be my last one, I think, because I'm running pretty low on wire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one I'm just going to keep coiling it down until I run out of wire. Tighten it down with my fingernails. And then use my bent nose pliers to cinch down that loose pokey end, if you can see it. Because the last thing you want is your ears getting tangled up in your hair or stabbing you. Or and so that is the ear. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and on the widest part, I'm going to bend it around like this. And then from here, actually, one more material. I've got this bead container that's about 1.5 inches, yeah, in diameter. I like the size and shape for getting it to fit over ears. So you just kind of brace that into place and shape it around. And also by using this, I'll be able to get both ears to match. And then I'm going to take my 8mm bead. And this is something you'll want to make sure that your wire fits onto the beads, because like a 6mm doesn't quite fit on there. The hole's not big enough. But the 8mm fits on just fine. And then I'm going to make a little loop, not a full-on spiral, but just a little loop there at the tip to keep that bead from sliding off the end. And then coiling to the outside of the ear, I'm going to brace it loosely with my fingers and push around like this. So you want to be careful that you don't break your bead. And then from here, again, artistic discretion, you get to, as the artist, get to decide how long you want this bottom part to be. And there you go. And then also here, I like to kind of push in on the back side and get it to bow out a little bit, make it a little more three-dimensional. You know, not just a flat ear, but give it some nice curvature, because that helps whenever the light hits it. Ooh, it's so sparkly. And there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it helped you along with your own project. And if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. Now also, whenever you're sizing these, if you want it to fit tighter onto the ear, you'll push this top wire in, and that'll grip there. If you can size it in this way to get it to hug, you know, the back part of your ear. And then you can change the angle of it by if you want a very upturned ear, or if you want like a downward slant to the ear. You know, you can really size and cinch and smush this around to get it to fit however is perfect for you. So there y'all go. You have a wonderful day and happy crafting. I'll see you around.